life was infinitely better when I was on a really high performing team with high standards. And like, that's what I want to provide to all of our team members. And that's why I started Jumpstart, is like, I want to build the most mission driven, culturally aligned, what we call hero development company, where people could join and feel what it's like to be a part of a high performing team, learn those behaviors, and then experience what that's like to be challenged and to have high standards and then to meet them.
Welcome to the Lead In podcast, where we dive deep into genuine stories of leaders who've seized control of their journey. This podcast is brought to you by Lead Hub, your growth partner for the trades. And now, let me kick it over to our guy, Austin Lenny.
Guys, welcome to the Lead In podcast, powered by Lead Hub. I got my man Daniel in the house. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Oh, man, we're so happy to have you here. And I was telling him before, everybody I've come in contact with him has been so impressed by who he is as a businessman and just as a person. So I'm very excited to get to know you and learn more about your story. Why don't you kind of start your story where you want to, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. I'm Daniel McCarty. I'm 29 years old, born and raised here in San Antonio. I've grown up with businesses my whole life. My dad was a pretty accomplished entrepreneur. So I grew my whole life just seeing the impact that he had on lots of different families and lots of different industries. And I always call it a wake. Like everywhere he walked, there was just like a rippling out of impact, really. And that really left a huge impact on me. Didn't spend a lot of time talking with him about business. I just got to observe the effects of what he did. So that left a big impact on me growing up. I went off to college. I was lucky enough, I got a full scholarship to play football at SMU up in Dallas. It was a 3-year starter on the offensive line about 100 pounds ago. Had a wonderful time up there. Learned a lot about teamwork, culture, what makes a good team, what makes a bad team. Got there. Our first year was pretty good. Our second year, we were statistically one of the worst teams in the history of college football. And then got to see the turnaround with a new coach and the new culture. And so anyway, I just had a fantastic experience there. Got to be a leader and really honed how I think leadership should be done. And then moved right back home to San Antonio to work for the family business. Can talk more about that in a little bit, but we have just various different industries, sort of like I call it a redneck holdco before that was popular on Twitter. We were in the mining and aggregate business, the ready mix concrete business. We own a landfill here and a waste disposal arm as well.
Sure.
Anyway, we did that for a while, decided to sell a couple of those businesses. So spent 2019, 2020, first half of 21 kind of doing those processes. And then that led me into where I am now here at Jumpstart, and have to talk more about that as well.
I love that. I was golfing a year ago, and I'm going to say it wrong because I always do, but kind of New Braunfels.
Yeah.
And I was golfing with a dad and a son, and his dad was from Kerrville, Texas, and he had spent his whole life in commercial concrete. And he had a 3,000 acre ranch. He was talking about planes, and I'm sitting there talking to him the whole time, and I'm just like, this is / the boringest business I've ever heard about, but also the coolest business I've ever heard about, because this guy's just been doing this for 40 years and a redneck holdco. Like, I love that. That should be a whole nother thing, because I grew up in Houston in Southeast Texas, and the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, you meet these guys. I remember meeting another guy who had 100 properties, and he had owned a couple businesses. What did you learn? You know, you said you didn't talk business a lot with your dad, but you observed a lot. What did you learn about the old school way that business was done, the right way, that they're not talking about on social media platforms?
So my dad was an older gentleman. He had me when he was 59. I've got 2 half brothers that are both in the business with me right now, that we co-own the landfill together. They're 64 and I'm 29, right? So we have a very interesting family history, but my dad was very old school. And the thing, if you were with that gentleman and you'd asked him who Dan McCarty is, I bet you he didn't know. There was a whole generation of construction owners of San Antonio that know my dad, because he was in business, he loved to hunt and fish. So he worked hard enough to build relationships, and take everyone in San Antonio that's even directly related to construction to hunt and fish like all sorts of places. So basically he had this wonderful business that basically was a way of making friends and connections, and everyone in the construction industry knew my dad. It was all offline. They could all go to the lease and sit around a fire, and it's just hilarious now, all these 60-year-olds that are like, oh, your dad taught me how to shoot or taught me how to hunt. And it is crazy to see the ripple effect of just, if you're in the community, right, you're working offline, you're networking, right, before that was even a word, you're just being who you are and you're inviting people. And there's not a person really in the construction industry that wouldn't take a call now just because of what he did. And I think it's such a key thing in a business community, especially in any city. Even if there's millions of people, like there's a small group of business owners, and just being yourself, acting with integrity. You never know who is some employee, right, that you're talking to now that's going to end up running their own firm in 10 years. And that's proven out time and time again of some really successful people that are like, hey, your dad treated me so well as just a low employee when I was 22 or 3. Really helped give me some guidance, and now they're multimillionaires, and anyway, and they'll just do anything for our family just because of what he did. So it's that idea of like acting with integrity, getting out into the community, and then always, you just never know who you're going to meet or how you're going to have an impact. So that's mainly what comes to mind.
You said something in the beginning. You said he left like a wake. Have you ever dealt with yourself, just personal pressure? Like, am I going to be able to live up to this like grandioso? My dad had a very successful business too. Did you ever? He was a doctor. I didn't want to be a doctor, so that was never going to be a concern for me. But have you ever dealt with that, and has it come across your path?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting. I get compared sometimes to him, and in other ways we're very different. It's not something that I hold as like a big pressure. I view it more like he set a great example. It ignited a fire in me, and I'm trying to be all that I can be, right? Ultimately, trying not to take my purpose or my value in life through work anyway, right? And I know he certainly didn't, and we're both, I'm trying to do the best I can and create great places to work. But that's success in business. Great. I sure hope it is. And if not, that's fine too. But yeah, I think it's been a healthy, he set a good, healthy relationship without that kind of pressure of trying to live up to an expectation. I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he raised me in a way that set a high bar, but like, there's really been I haven't felt really any pressure to, negative pressure whatsoever. So I'm not sure how he did that. I'd love to study that more when I have my own kids, for sure.
And so you've had a couple different examples through football and through business of leadership. How do you take what you've learned from them, and, kind of what's your definition of leadership for yourself while you're leading your employees in the businesses that you run yourself?
Yeah, I'd say certainly from dad especially is lead by example and just be authentic. He didn't have core values all over the office. But he lived out his values every single day. You knew exactly where he stood. You knew what he was about. You knew, what was above the line and what was below the line. And everyone that worked for him lived those out. So that's just one, an old age versus a new age. I like to have our values written out. Just because he didn't doesn't mean he didn't have core values. He probably didn't know that word, but he definitely lived them out. But for me, I think it starts with accountability. If we don't have a culture of accountability, I learned that, in football especially, is if you have a bunch of people that are not really bought into a system of accountability, and where, you totally rely on the coaches to do everything for you, to do, they're not going to be able to do the workouts with you. They're not on the field with you, right? And if you just kind of, same with employees, if they sit back and they go like, oh, if you need to hand me this many leads a day, and it's never going to work. But if you have a culture of ownership and accountability, basically, I think that's the absolutely base bedrock of any healthy organization. So that's something that we instill a lot here. And then just the idea of growth mindset is something I think we talk about a lot here. Is just, I want people to plug in and just fall in love with the process of getting a little bit better every day. Not too high, not too low. If you could just come in, work really hard, try and get a little bit better every day, fall in love with that process, of, chopping down a giant tree, right? That'll probably take the next 30 years before you even see a dent.
Yeah, totally.
That's just how I think good teams and good cultures are formed. And if you deviate from that and you don't have that culture of accountability and you skimp, I think, on the bedrock of your core values and the standard you're setting. And I've been lucky enough to see it go really poorly. And which I think is lucky because now I know how important it is, right? And anyway, we've all been on good teams. We've been on bad teams. I've been in some of our businesses because they all had different leadership, had great culture. Some of them didn't have good culture. And it's miserable to be on a team that has bad culture and that isn't performing well. Like, it's just miserable. Like, I was miserable when we were on that bad team. And I was so fired up and my life was infinitely better when I was on a really high performing team with high standards. And like, that's what I want to provide to all of our team members. And that's why I started Jumpstart, is like, I want to build the most mission driven, culturally aligned, what we call hero development company, where people could join and feel what it's like to be a part of a high performing team, learn those behaviors, and then experience what that's like to be challenged and to have high standards and then to meet them. It just ripples out into your life, right? Into your, your relationships, into your community. And like, that's not to get too, I don't know, romantic, but I really do think that being on a great team ripples out. I'm sure you could agree, just in all aspects of a business and a team is that's what we're trying to build at Johnson.
100%. I think what's interesting, right, is, and I say this knowing that I have one, but the darlings of Twitter and social media in the ETA world is HVAC, plumbing, whatever. And I'll be honest with you, like plumbing right now is exciting me more than HVAC because it's less headaches and less supply chain and less seasonal, right? And that's a conversation that I'll be having a lot more with a lot of people. But nobody really thinks of like, hey, let's get in the junk business. Right. It's not really something, even pest control, like stuff like that, they're like hotter, but like it's junk. Like, what led you down the path to pursue this option and what was so attractive to you?
Yeah. So what's funny is I backed into this in one way, I will call it a more intentional way. So I started with the idea of, after we sold our mining business and our concrete business, we had a large, a nice exit. And I tried to search for a little bit. I was like, I'll just buy a business here in San Antonio. Didn't find anything I liked, nothing remotely close to my expectations. So I said, in 10 years, like, what would I like to own in 10 years that has great economics, that's scalable, that provides the margin to help build the culture I want? Because I've been in razor thin margin businesses that are commodities that it's just hard to ever take a breath to focus on culture and to, sending your team to a leadership meeting. And like in the ready mix business, it is so you're pouring at 12, at 1 a.m., at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you just never have time to breathe. And so I was like, I love business. I love studying business models. So I wanted a great business model to afford me the margin to invest in the culture that I wanted. So 10 years out, what do I want to build? Software's got great margins. I'm not a tech guy. So I decided, being a franchisor, that is a fantastic business model when it works. And I said, okay, I can do it. I want to start a franchisor. And then decided, okay, now what industry do I want to start my concept in? I love home services. I knew that was a fit. And then obviously I wanted to leverage what we have existing, which is we own one of the 3 landfills in San Antonio. So it's either, really dumpsters or junk removal. I don't like the dumpster business. I don't like the returns on invested capital. I don't like it. But junk removal, there's already 5 to 10, national players that have built a franchise system. There's a lot of room, I think, that they left. A lot of, room for improvement. And I love the idea of the unit economics. And anyway, so I backed into junk removal that way. Started it, really had the idea fall of 22. Started working with Lead Hub. They came up with the creative with me and just getting everything off the ground, and then started officially January of 23 into the junk removal space. And we've been blowing and going ever since. So that's kind of how I backed into the junk removal.
And what do you think when you're looking at a business to either start or buy or franchise, whatever it is, What are the metrics that other people, not the normal ones, the glaring ones? What are the metrics that people aren't paying attention to that are super important?
Yeah. I think so. Return on invested capital is everything to me, and that is a measure of profitability and a measure of capital intensity. And the measure of profitability, so like in our mining business, we had a high EBITDA margin, but our maintenance CapEx was crazy. I mean, we had millions and millions of dollars of giant haul trucks, right? 40-ton haul trucks, excavators, loaders. Your true free cash flow is a lot lower than your reported EBITDA. That's an okay business. Ready Mix had a very low return on capital, and franchising, right, has a high return on invested capital. So it just depends. That's one that I love. And then pricing power. Our Ready Mix business was a true commodity. We bid, basically a builder hires a concrete contractor, and the only job they have is to pour the slab. So it's you and the 6 other Ready Mix companies in town all send a bid to one guy, and his whole job is just to get concrete bids. So he knows within a penny where you are and where your competitors are. And it's so hard to make to get any sort of pricing power on that. Just think about it, right? What if everyone you sold to in plumbing or HVAC had to go through a plumbing and HVAC basically broker, and they knew all your competitors' pricing.
We couldn't.
It's insane.
Because here's what's crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm running a bigger business in a 100-mile radius than anybody in my area, okay? And the hardest thing that we're doing right now is teaching our guys what value actually is. Because I can't charge what the 2 van shops can charge, but I can do it 3 weeks quicker. And so I have to sell them. I'm not even selling the customer. The customer just wants it done. So you're 100% right. If I had to go through a broker, I wouldn't be in this business. That's for sure. Yeah.
Pricing power is so important. And junk removal I like, because some people, honestly, Austin, call and they're like, oh, you mean you're going to charge me to pick up my stuff? But then some people, like, they don't know if it's $200 or $400 or $500. So I hate those calls. I really do. I'm like, you don't ask anyone else why they do work for free. But I also know that I could charge $200, and if I moved it to $250 the next week because I need to cover some incremental costs, like, I wouldn't get pushback. So I really like the pricing power of junk removal, or basically the price discovery process. And then I have one truck. The bed stays on, and I go around and I pick up junk, right? In dumpster business, that you have a more expensive truck and you've got 30 dumpsters for every truck. So you've got, just another $300,000 or $400,000 of, capital tied up to make, I think, a lower margin. So anyway, that's why.
And just for like a real life story, I got divorced. I had to sell some properties. At the time, I was in Tahoe running hotels. And I had a property in San Antonio, and we couldn't sell it because the tenant was a contractor and had junk just everywhere. And it took me a couple of days to find somebody to actually come and do it. But I couldn't sell this property for $300,000 because I had to go spend $700 on junk removal, and I wasn't there, right? And we found we found a company. They did it. It was great. It was clean. People don't think about the junk part until they need it. And then they're like, okay, well, I need this gone. Where do I take it?
Yeah.
How do I get rid of it? These, that's changing, right? City laws and all that stuff. So there's so much more to it than just hauling away stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I know we go through our sales training in the mornings of, value and price. And I heard it said this way. A lot of times your frontline team members, they're usually a lot more price sensitive than your target customer, right? Just from where they are in their budget. So they might say, yeah, I know, it's $300. I know it's a lot, right? But and it's no, right? 9 times out of 10, our target customer is not really concerned about. It's not going to be a pricing rebuttal. It's going to be something else. So anyway, it's just a matter of getting in the mindset of training and look, just because you think $300 to do this may be a stretch for you doesn't mean our customer is. And if you go in there and you give any sort of hint of that, that's what they're going to pick up on, right? Otherwise, why don't we ask questions like, what's most important to them? Maybe they've got, anyway, and that's when we find out, hey, I need to clean out this garage because I'm going to do a new home gym, right? Okay, and then, or hey, my daughter is turning 16 tomorrow. I need the garage cleaned out because I got her a new car. I need to park it in here, right? Okay, so then you can see how we're providing more value. I need to sell a house. I'm going to make a couple $100,000. but this $700 job's been standing between me and the right. And like, okay, so then that's why we always try and ask questions and figure out what's really the issue at hand, and then how can we provide value to solve that problem.
So when you're working with Lead Hub and you're working with yourself and you're starting this business, the thing that strikes me when I look at your business as a whole, when I study the website, I look at your trucks, it sticks out to me. Like that orange, like you can tell it's clean, it's nice, it's vibrant. Like, what are your thought patterns when you're visioning out your business for anybody out there that's looking to start a brand or rebrand something? Like, what are the thoughts that are going on in your mind?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So I had just the most fun trying to come up with this concept and brand from scratch. And I did it with Lead Hub, and Ryan, the whole creative team was amazing. But I started with the idea of, and you have to go kind of deep in it, but it's like, that feeling of, I put off changing a light bulb for a couple months in my house. And then I finally get around to changing that one light bulb. And then I end up at Home Depot probably 6 different times that day. I feel on fire. I like paint the back door. I do all these things. It's that energy, the jolt, right? And that's what I want a Jumpstart to be, is like, hey, you let all this stuff, for whatever reason, pile up. Like, think about how that tiny little win is what we call it, right? Like that little bit of momentum you can build just by facing whatever fear or thing that you're procrastinating. And then boom, like that power and energy ripples out into, when they're at the dinner table, right? A lot of our customers are, think about, it's just, it ripples out into the community. And that's where, like, Jumpstart, it's kind of like a fresh start. We wanted like a jolt of energy. That's why we've got a lightning bolt in the J, and just really our whole brand is around that idea of like momentum that you can get from sort of, doing a small task. So when we started talking about it, I knew the idea of energy and momentum had to be important. We went through a lot of different iterations on that. I like the idea of, we use the word hero in our company, which all that means is having the strength for 2. So we're trying to grow, so we have more to give. That's kind of our fundamental tenet for our team here, is like, hey, we're trying to grow, so we have more to give. We call it like the hero journey. It's that universal story that you hear in most stories. And so I knew I wanted something to do with the idea of like a journey, and then like the energy to go on. And that's kind of where Jumpstart, kind of came about, was like, hey, we're, get a fresh start with Jumpstart. It's the idea of like that jolt for your journey. It's, it all kind of came together with the lightning bolt, the colors. We went round and round, but it was so much fun. Like, it just, there was probably 50 other ones I didn't like, but then one crossed the screen and you go, wow, I think we got some room to work there. And then there's, nothing's ever perfect. So, you can overthink it. And then there's a time just to pick it and run with it. But I've been super happy with the brand and how it's resonating with our customers.
No, there's so much depth in thinking about the brand, right? And I think that the number one issue that a lot of people run into is there's no soul in their business. Yeah. There's no connectivity, right? And so my big argument with everybody, because I help my clients do this, but also ran a podcast for years, this one and another one, and helping people, is that branding and marketing are not the same thing. And when you understand that, and so when I say that, and what comes to mind for you when I say that branding and marketing aren't the same thing?
Yeah. The interesting thing, Austin, is so I'll speak to me in junk removal. The idea of me going out and just being number 15 junk removal guy in San Antonio, right? And being undifferentiated. And right now, I still struggle with this because my website looks the same as the other top 5 guys. And we use the same words and the same pictures. And what really I'm focusing on this year is like, I've got a unique brand. I've got a story. I've got soul. These other companies, these larger competitors, they don't. And they're not going to be able to compete on it. And how I view it is, you have 2 options. I could either do the exact same as them. I'll play piggyback. We'll compete on the same keywords, right? We'll do the same SEO tactics. It'll be a race to the bottom because guess what? Google's always going to make more money. Or you can lean into your brand, an asset that these other companies don't have. You can work on your branding, your storytelling. That is positively compounding. And you create your own competitive field and you're gonna win. And anyway, so it's like, it's either you go on a negative compounding journey where it's more and more expensive to do pay-per-click and you're less and less differentiated, or you have to pivot and focus on your brand and your storytelling, doing it in compelling ways, and that's positively compounding the more and more you do it. So like maybe that's I don't know, Austin. Do you feel like that's
No. It's great.
I don't really see that as much of a choice.
I have an issue with it. One statement, and it's a couple books have broken me of it, and it's a question I ask myself weekly. Yeah. We're not going to do it like it's always been done. Simple as that. Like you get in these businesses and you're like, okay, well, this is the way that we've always done it. And so we did some branding, right? We didn't have a presence when we came on board. And now every one of our competitors is just doing what we're doing. Like literally copying our ads for the same, not even using our vendors, but using the vendors' pictures and the thing. I know because I find out, right? But here's what they don't have that I have. I don't stop. Every day. Yeah. I clock in every day for the next 50 years. And so when you get on this new journey and you're not really caring about the people that you're serving, the employees that you're employing, and the community that you're providing value to, your flame isn't built the right way, so you're going to burn out. I ain't going to stop. Yeah. I ain't going to stop. And so I can be upset about it, or we can just go out and outperform them day in and day out. And when they walk away, then I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. But the only way to do that is to ask yourself, what are the ways that it's always been done? Let's go do it different. Let's go be something that's different. Like I struggle with this on X, on Twitter. Okay. Yeah. I can write a post that I know will get more likes if I talk about numbers. If I talk about HVAC and plumbing, that post. But when I talk about what it looks like to be a proper human and husband, no interest. Yeah. But here's what happens. I go to a place like Main Street Summit, or somebody DMs me and they say, hey man, I love your content. It's so different. It's so authentically you. And I go, I'm just going to keep rowing in my direction. Right. Yep. And the greatest compliment that you can get as a human, and this is for everybody that's running a business or marketing yourself, is you are your brand. When I get that comment, I'm like, ooh, we've hit it right on the head. Like, and I'm a little brass. I had an addiction problem. I was an alcoholic. Like, I'm a little in your face if I need to be. And like, I don't lean away from that. Like, if that's, like, I'm just going to be me, because if I'm me, then I can wake up every day and be fired up about what I'm serving the community is. And let's be honest, junk removal is not something that I want to fly out of bed about. But when you're sitting there and you're describing to me and you're saying, okay, they're sitting at the dinner table, it's a new chapter, they're getting away of the old junk, then I'm thinking to myself, like, I want to go work for this guy. Like, that is a depth layer of thinking that can get you out of bed every morning when you think of your brand that way.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Yeah, I just think authenticity is you're only you, and it's, again, I said it, but you don't really have an option. The option is either be just like everyone else, have a faulty candle wick at the foundation. You're never gonna, like, you're just gonna burn out and you're gonna spin your wheels, and or it's lean into yourself. Which sounds, again, it sounds almost too esoteric, but it's the most practical business advice, right? You can possibly give someone, and they don't want to hear that. They want to hear, the 10-step process to doing Google ads and I agree. I'm just telling you, having been there, like, if you don't lean into that intangible stuff, you're never, I promise you, it will not work to do the very practical step. And maybe that's good enough to get into the business world. I don't want to sit you on the sidelines until you have everything figured out. But certainly, long term, you need to lean into what's authentic to you if you have any shot of longevity. Yeah.
Naval has a quote, and he says, "The only way to truly escape competition is to be authentically you." Because nobody can be you, so there is no competition. And when I read that, I was like, okay, there it is. Just hit it on the head.
And like, who are you competing against? That's what I always tell the guys. Like, what's our standard? We're better than 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Okay. Like, who picked that as our standard? I don't care. Like, our standard is so much higher than that. Like if we can't be our best, how are we supposed to be worried about being the best, right? And I just learned that in football. It's like we have a standard and we're committed to that process, and we'll probably never reach it. But every day we're just focused on that. That's something Nick Saban say, Coach Belichick, anyone in football that's worth anything has their own internal standard, and you're competing against that. And it's higher than any external standard or any of your competitors, right? And like that's the fire that could keep you burning. But yeah, if you start worrying about your competitors and what they're doing, and you're just going to bounce around and you're going to burn out, I think, for sure.
I think to wrap up the marketing conversation, I think that marketing, one of the things I realized about doing a podcast for as long as I have is like you can only attack so many areas of your business at one time, right? And the problem is that there's Google AdWords, there's Facebook, there's Yelp, there's so many things you don't even know where to look half the time. We're getting DMs off Facebook, we're getting website leads, they're just everywhere. How do you as a business owner, do you set quarterly goals? Do you track per month? You're trying something new? Do you just kind of put it in a bucket? How do you look at like attacking all these different avenues for business?
Yeah, I've learned a lot about marketing, the B2C marketing, the past year. I paid a really large dumb tax, is what I'll call it. And I just started, with a huge budget and sprayed and prayed, and really have learned to be a lot more thoughtful about it. And you're right, you can do all sorts of things. And we tried everything last year. And just like anything, you come back to refining it to like, I'm going to do these 3 things really well. Maybe it's Google pay-per-click. It's a little bit of, LSA, and then Yelp has worked for us. Okay. And then digital, I view it as digital's a third of your business. Offline or B2B for me is a third of my business. And then like community involvement's a third. And they all take a lot of time and effort, but just a holistic marketing approach is, I think, always best, especially for a small business. Junk removal, same with plumbing and HVAC though, is like you need to go, if you think you could just spend money on pay-per-click, but yet not join the chambers, your Rotary Club, not have be out in the field talking to kind of high leverage points. Like for us, it's realtor groups or property managers that could refer you. And if you think like I did initially, you could just spend on pay-per-click, and it's just not going to work well. Like it's got to be holistic. It's got to be holistic. So this year we're going, hey, I'm getting more granular on a pay-per-click. It's going to be a lower budget. That's just what it takes in junk removal. There's a certain amount of spend that you go over that, and it decouples. So we're going to do digital as well as we can. We're going to do our B2B effort. I hired a salesman. We're going to probably hire another one. And all they do is in person, boots on the ground, shaking hands and setting up meetings, which our other competitors aren't willing to do. And then community involvement, which is taking our brand story, thoughtfully storytelling. I'm about to hire a person that's just going to do all of our content and storytelling. It's going to be in-house. I want to just blow and go and tell, our story, how it resonates or relates to our customers. And I think that will aid, obviously, both digital and our in-person events. So that's kind of how I'm viewing marketing going into 2024 is if you rely on anything, pay-per-click used to be 100 and LSA was 50. And in the last year, right, LSA is now more expensive than pay-per-click. So it's like, it's always changing. That there's always, it's just insane how difficult digital marketing is. So you need to have a great partner like LeadHub, but you also need to get leads. You need to drive leads offline because it is brutally hard to be a home service provider in digital marketing is brutally hard. I'm sure you would agree, Austin. Yeah,
I think the tactic that I take is one to many is about 30% of my thing, meaning who are the people through the chamber, which has been huge for us. Who are the businesses that we do right by them? They're going to refer 10, or they have 10 buildings, or they the county, right? They have 20 buildings, right? And then when we do that job, understand that this job is going to lead to a lot more. So the biggest issue that I dealt with in my company that we still deal with is I call us that we were the 95%ers. We would take everything 95% and just leave it, and then we wouldn't finish. And I'm like, no, we finish. Because like if you did a great job up to 95%, you don't give them the last 5%, they're not going to ask for business again.
Yeah,
but if you
everything in life lives in that 5%.
But if you give them the 100%, and what I've done too, and I'm not saying everybody can do this because obviously I'm in a smaller town, so it's a little different thing. But we had a bad reputation when I came on board, and I did some jobs for free that I got questioned for. But because we made an impact and those people own businesses in the community, that a restaurant, a coffee shop, we've got more business off of doing right by them and not charging them. We've got 20, 30 jobs off of fixing their electricity when nobody else could fix it, fixing the water pipe at the coffee shop that everybody goes to. That's been more of a ripple effect. But one of the things, all right, but one of the biggest things that we did that got us, and this is just who I am because I'm listening to you and you care about the community. We have a VOTEC school, high school in our area. We had one of the kids that works for us who's now in trade school, who's going to works for us on Fridays and blah, blah, blah. So there's 7 seniors. I went to 3 of my reps. They donated tools, bags, shirts, the whole 9. We gave shirts, and I gifted those to the kids. And I'm going to do that every year with every graduating class. And it's because of what it gets them started on their career. None of those guys work for me. Only one guy works for me, but it was the right thing to do. The seller of the business that we bought had his enemies reach out to him and say, okay, you sold to the right guy. That's what I like to see. And so that was just something that I was doing because I thought it was the right thing to do. But we got that article got shared 150 times, and that was just something that I thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. No, I think that's the next level of community involvement. It's got to be authentic, but great things are going to happen if you're a good person, you live in integrity, and so does your company. Yeah. And similarly, if you don't, then it's going to turn into it's going to come to home to roost eventually. Totally.
So if people want to follow your journey, they want to reach out to you, how would they do that?
Yeah, Twitter, Daniel _McCarty is where I'm most active. LinkedIn as well. Yeah, happy to share anything I can and help wherever I can.
Awesome. Well, guys, we had so much fun with him. If you want to reach out to him, share it with some friends, and rate us and review us, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Folks, if you made it to the end of the episode, I'm sure you found some value with what you're listening to. If you could send this to a friend, rate us and review us, share us around. The more that you share us, the more that we can share content with you. Thank you all so much for your time and listening, and we'll see you next time.